both fascinates me and infuriates me is Ellen DeGeneres. So I've looked through some of her controversies and I want to talk about them in this video, so let's get straight into it. Ellen was born January 26, 1958, and that makes her 67 this year. Comedian, actress, host, writer, and producer. One of the reasons why I personally fell in love with Ellen DeGeneres was because I loved watching her videos on YouTube. How she would bring people on, she would give them stuff, she always acted so friendly. I can say up until the pandemic, when a lot of celebrities were getting called out, up until then, I really liked Ellen DeGeneres. I had no problem with her. And I think all the good things she's done for the world or for people that she's helped, I don't think they should be overlooked either, which is like a really hard part of this, that she has done so much good, but she's also done a lot of bad for a lot of people. So there's four main things that stand out to me when I think of Ellen DeGeneres now. And if you'd asked me a couple of years ago what I thought, these four things would not have come up. So the first one is the Mariah Carey and being pregnant, which we're going to get into each of these stories separately as well. And if I can, I will add the videos to them. And then there was the Dakota Johnson birthday party, which was another one that she was actually invited. Dakota called her out in it. There was the college girl, Jamie, that thought she was getting her like tuition paid for, and then she didn't in the end. And then Taylor Swift, where she just blatantly just gives out to her for having boyfriends, like every time she's on, to the point where Taylor literally cries in one of the episodes. And that's just really hard to watch as a viewer, and just how she wasn't called out at any of these points at the time when it was actually happening. And I guess the ratings matter more. When you look back on them, you realize how bad these situations actually were for these celebrities. Times throughout my research from different videos, different articles, her story is really wholesome, and how she got famous and how she came out being a lesbian and everything. But she started as a comedian, and in 1994 she had the Ellen sitcom show, which we'll get into how that like changed so much for TV. So in 1997, the Ellen sitcom was one of the biggest shows on telly, but little did she know that within 1 year of it becoming the biggest show ever, that it was going to be cancelled, and we'll get into that whole reason. 1997, at this time, it was okay to be...
I only said it like that because at the time it was okay, but it wasn't okay in the public eye. That's what I mean by that.
But it still wasn't very public. There was a lot of celebrities, a lot of famous people that stayed in the closet, and I don't mean it like that, that they just felt like they couldn't come out, that the world wasn't ready for certain people to be gay, and especially lesbians. I don't think there was as many lesbians as there is today that were like publicly known. So there was an episode that was released where her character was going to come out as a lesbian, but then she was in Time magazine coming out as a lesbian, and I'll put the photo up of it, what the article was. And basically that episode broke records. So many people watched it, and they didn't actually call the episode like the lesbian one or anything like that. They had a different name for it so that it wouldn't get leaked to the public. But then like a week before it was going to premiere, she did the news, the Time magazine article came out, and she basically came out saying that she was gay. And at the time, like I said, this was quite a big deal in the 90s to come out saying you were gay. A lot of people weren't for it, and I think because the Ellen sitcom was just played as like a family wholesome show, that it wasn't deemed appropriate for families to be watching someone gay on the telly. And I know looking now in 2025 how crazy that seems to say out loud, but it's just so crazy how the world was back then. Season after she came out gay, the sitcom was cancelled, which is such a shame that it got cancelled, that like over this, when it really was meant to be something quite big and a big deal. But it got cancelled after one season. And she did try to do another sitcom, but it didn't take off the same. In 2000 that she met her now wife, Portia, which there's so many mixed stories about that. I'm not really sure if I'm going to get too much into that in this video, but whole lot of stories with that. I guess her career took a little bit of a dip here between like the late 90s and early 2000s, and it seems crazy now to think that it took a dip because she came out as gay, and I think it was just the world just wasn't fully prepared for that when they loved this character that they thought was a straight woman and she turned out to be gay. It just seems crazy because no one would really bat an eyelid now if someone comes out as gay. It just seems so much more normal. I don't know how to explain it without sounding inappropriate, but it just seems so much more normal. And I know to people it's still such a big deal to come out to your family, but I guess it's way more accepted now than it was back then. But in 2003 she was given the role of a lifetime, and it was to play Dory in Finding Nemo. And this is when she like took off, and it wasn't long after this that she started the Ellen DeGeneres show, which had Jennifer Aniston as the first guest. And the first guest being Jennifer Aniston at the time was a really big deal because Friends, the sitcom, had just cancelled or had just stopped its show. So it was a complete high for like Jennifer Aniston to be on the show. Ellen has won 33 daytime Emmy Awards, and at the time there wasn't many daytime shows, so it was quite a big deal how she took off. And obviously like her be kind persona and everything like that kind of worked in her favor. And like I said at the beginning, like if you had said to me 5-6 years ago something bad about Ellen DeGeneres, I don't think I would have believed it. And I think there'd be a lot of people on my side with that everyone just believed how amazing this woman was. So it was so shocking to me to hear all the allegations of her, and I think I was like a little bit heartbroken by it really, because she was just such this be kind person. And although in the last couple of years of her show I didn't watch it, like even a couple of years before, I don't think I've ever watched an actual full episode of the Ellen DeGeneres show. I think I just watched the snippets on YouTube. But it has been said that now, years on, there has been so many allegations, so many hush-hush things about Ellen not being this nice person that she portrays on her show. It's because she was making so much money for so many people that they kind of let it slide. Now, there are so many stories I could add into this video, but I'm just going to stick with some main ones that stuck out, which doesn't mean the other stories aren't as important, but it was just kind of like the highlighted ones that I kept seeing everywhere, that kind of came up more frequently, so I could like almost fact check them and see that they were correct. It was quarantine in 2020 where the beginning of the end really happened for Ellen DeGeneres. So she lives, obviously, I can't tell the exact number, but I would just imagine at least a $10 million home at the time, somewhere in the Beverly Hills or Malibu. I feel like it was Malibu because I feel like I remember something about her being on the beach. But she lived in a big ass mansion in the middle of quarantine, and she had the audacity to go online and say, and put this in perspective from my point of view, I was living in the first quarantine, I was living in a small flat with my boyfriend. I couldn't work. I didn't have much money, and he still had to go to work because he was considered like a necessity essential worker. And I couldn't leave the house. I was going stir crazy at home in a 2-bed flat, pretty small compared to Ellen's. Like our bathroom was probably the same size as our flat. And I remember just seeing like this article of Ellen saying she felt like she was in jail. And I was like I get it, because obviously like you're a celebrity and all that, but at the same time I was like, are you serious? Like, how can you actually say that? Like, not only is it just so tone deaf to say something as silly as that, but you live in a massive house, you probably have a gym, like you have the money to get food ordered in. Not that I went hungry or anything, because I didn't, but I remember just even thinking like, are people being dramatic? But I was like, no, actually, like this is really tone deaf. And then it also came out that she started recording her show from her house, but then she stopped paying the staff that weren't working, which in one side you could say, well, they weren't working, but on the other side it was like, Ellen, you make millions upon millions a year with the Ellen DeGeneres show. Why couldn't you pay your staff? Like, we all know that you could afford to pay your staff. So I don't understand why these big millionaires didn't pay their staff. I don't understand why they didn't get paid. Like, they would make back that money so easily. A comedian called Kevin Porter. So then there was comedian Kevin Porter who wrote out a tweet basically saying he would give $2 to charity, to the food bank, I think in LA, if anyone could write down their bad reviews of Ellen DeGeneres, or a bad experience they had with Ellen DeGeneres. And I guess when he said he would donate $2, he didn't really expect the response he did, because there was over 3,000 replies. And I mean, it's not the first time that something has come out, because I remember Nikki Tutorials, I think it was when she came out as being transgender, And she went on the Ellen Jenner show. She was on it the same day as the Jonas Brothers. And I remember her doing a video afterwards, basically saying like, my video of my interview with Ellen Jenner has millions more views than the Jonas Brothers. It was like, I was just as important as them, but she was treated quite badly. Like, I don't think she got to meet Ellen beforehand. And she wasn't given like, I don't know if it was like, she wasn't given a dressing room and she wasn't sure where she could go toilet because it was like staff only toilets. There was something about it. If I can find the clip, I'll pop it in. But I remember at the time thinking like, the Jonas Brothers, although they're on a bit of a high now, at the time they weren't on a high. So it was like, it made sense to be nicer to Nikki Tutorial. She's got millions of followers and subscribers. Like, it should have just been a bit more of a priority. I had a list right out, so I'm gonna list off a few things that came up quite a few times, so it's kind of showing. And of course, you don't know how many of these tweets are exactly factual or true, or if it's just someone that had gone through it. But after this part, I'm gonna go through some of the videos as well that I did see. So there was one thing about like not being able to look at her was a big thing. You weren't allowed to have any meat on set. There was something about, there was a set nearby, had like meat and food and stuff, and she basically told them they had to get rid of their food, even though it wasn't like near her, but because she's a vegetarian. And I will give it to her, she does do a lot for the animals, but because she's a vegetarian, she didn't want any meat on set. And I kind of get like, maybe if you do put out platters of food that it's like vegetarian based, but I feel like your staff should be able to have a ham sandwich if that's what they're bringing in. Especially, they're not making the same amount of money as you, Ellen. Like, they can't afford the same food as you, so I feel like you should accommodate your staff. There was no perfume, so she was really sensitive to smell. That came up quite a few times in different articles about her. She never said thank you or was like welcoming to staff or guests unless they were like really big named people, which I thought was super disappointing because it was just like her whole persona was to be nice, but actually she wasn't very nice. And then there was ex-staff members that talked about the fact that there was a lot of racism, there was rude, she was really rude, there was a lot of race. Well, actually it wasn't that she was racist, but there was other members of like production that were quite racist to one staff member who was black, and just like general rudeness that came about from that. If people were sick, they would be threatened with being fired. They didn't really get sick leave. That was a big one that was super disappointing, because I just feel like these big companies, that the people at the top get paid so much money, that they just took a pay cut of like $1 million. And considering, I'm pretty sure she was making 50 mil or something a season, if she took like $1 million pay cut, all her staff members would be sorted and she could just do an Instagram post to make that million up. Like, literally, there's so many ways around it. I just don't understand, and it's so frustrating to watch. When all these emails and tweets came out about the Ellen Jenner show, but BuzzFeed did an investigation on it, and she was forced to retire. 3,339 episodes in total. I think after the pandemic she came back for one season and she did a whole moment on her show basically saying that she didn't realize anything was happening if she did not. And I think the producers that were accused of stuff, they had to resign earlier than Ellen, but she did one more season, and her final guest was Jennifer Aniston, who was her first guest ever, which was like a nice homage to that. But I just think, like, how did it go on for so long? But I want to just quickly touch back on some of the episodes of celebrities and stuff that she treated really, really bad. So the first one was Mariah Carey. So basically, I'll pop up the video, but I'll probably explain it as it's happening. So there was rumors that Mariah Carey was pregnant, and confirmed it because she was so early on, and I believe she might have already had a miscarriage, or there were some complications, but she didn't want to announce her pregnancy just yet. So Ellen kept asking her about it, and Mariah kept trying to back away from the question because she didn't want to make it publicly yet. And then when she wouldn't take the bait of saying, yes, I'm pregnant, Ellen decided to get glasses of Prosecco out to celebrate to just celebrate Mariah Carey. And so what happened was Mariah was like, I can't drink this, and she like half took a sip of it. It's the most awkward video to watch in the whole entire world. I just can't believe it happened. So she basically had to almost come out that she was pregnant. And that's one of the saddest parts about this is when she came out that she was pregnant, it was only a few weeks after that she had to announce that she had actually miscarried because the baby didn't survive. And I just think that was her fear happening, and that's why she didn't want to make it so public to the world. And I just think Ellen making her do that was so unfair. Then there was a Dakota Johnson where she basically confronted what's her name? Dakota Johnson. She basically confronted Dakota Johnson about her birthday party and was like, so you had a birthday recently? And Dakota was like, yes. She was like, well, it would have been nice to be invited, or like something sarcastic. And Dakota was like, Ellen, I did invite you. You did get an invitation because last year you ripped into me about not inviting you, so I did make sure to invite you this year. And plus, I didn't think you really liked me, so I didn't know if I should invite you. And she was like, of course I like you. And she was like, I don't know if you do. And then the next story was this girl called Jamie who was going to college and really suffering, you know, financially and stuff. So Ellen brought her up on the stage, and I think her mom had wrote in about her on the stage and was talking to her and was like, so we're going to pay for your tuition. She was kind of going along that lines because this girl was like saying how, you know, like she has everything, it's just the tuition, she has to work so many jobs, blah blah blah. And she literally went to say Shutterfly was a charity that used to like give a lot away in the Ellen show. She was like, Shutterfly are gonna sponsor you and pay your tuition. And as she was about to say it, one of the producers said something, and Ellen was like, actually, we're giving you a new laptop. To which this girl, Jamie, replied with, I have a laptop, but that's great, thank you. And it was so awkward to watch because I hesitate to imagine that this girl's college tuition for however many years is probably $300,000, let's say, right? Ellen could pay for it. Ellen could have said, oh, Shutterfly, I can't sponsor this time, but actually I'm going to. Or she could have contacted her after. I just can't believe she didn't even do that. And I know that's the whole thing of like, well, she shouldn't have to be putting her hand in her own pocket all the time. I 100% agree with that sentiment and as well. But I think there should be some sort of responsibility to want to help. And then the last story was Taylor Swift. So Ellen DeGeneres just treated Taylor Swift like a slut. Like she completely slut-shamed her all the time. Like girls are allowed to have boyfriends. I think that's just a thing. The time Taylor Swift was brought onto the show, Ellen would just make her feel so small. Like it was painful to watch how small she made Taylor Swift feel. Literally Ellen kept going until Taylor started crying and was begging her to stop. Like I just don't know how all these incidents happened and it kept going. And I think it's because she did so good, she could get away with so bad. So then her show was cancelled after another season. After the pandemic, she got one more season, and I guess the ratings just weren't going back up. People couldn't see this happy persona the same anymore. And I remember I'd often think like she was quite sarcastic, but I guess I just thought it was like her personality. And then in 2024, she had a Netflix special, and honestly, I didn't watch the whole thing. I just watched bits and pieces of it. She literally just plays the victim. Like as if everyone has just done her so bad. She plays a victim, just constantly makes jokes out of the situation that she's in. Like how I can never be the bad guy, I'm always the good guy. Like if someone cuts me off in traffic and I beep the horn and it's like, no, you're allowed to do that. And people, I agree with her when she says that. I agree that if she did do anything wrong or like bold, and people would comment as if like, that sounds generous, how could she do that? So I agree with her in that way, but I don't agree with the way that she basically just played the victim for the whole thing. Some scent spray. Ooh, I like the way my makeup's turned out. I think it's cute. So what can we learn from the situation? I'm not really sure how to put this video to conclusion. So her and Portia basically bought a big estate manor in the UK, and that's where they moved to. And she said it's because Donald Trump was elected. It was like one of the things, presidency, not that I'm a fan of Donald Trump or anything. But when he was first running, there were so many celebrities that said they would move to Canada, they would move to the UK, move to Europe, and a lot of celebrities did. But she was one of them that said that. But I don't know if it's because like paparazzi aren't really a thing this side of the world. Like they are, but there's more rules and regulations. Like they can't just follow you around, and they can't come near your house and stuff like that. Like I live in a housing estate, and if I was a celebrity, even though the roads are public, I'm pretty sure the police or the paparazzi, they still can't just come and take photos of my house, or can't do that. Like I'm pretty sure there's like completely different rules and regulations here. But there's no real conclusion to this. She is still a multi-millionaire, if not a billionaire. Her show, I'm sure, still gets played. It's still making money on YouTube views. She lives the life of luxury with her and her wife, although I could do a whole video on like her previous girlfriend and now her wife, which I might add to my list of things to research. But yeah, so there's no real way to end this apart from she fooled us all and she got away with it, and there's nothing we can do about it. But I guess it's just the whole thing is to watch when celebrities look uncomfortable, because they are still humans. I guess like when people come on, like just keep an eye out for people, I guess is the main thing. Don't let anyone get that powerful either. I think that's the problem. When people become so powerful and rich, that's where my problem lays at, and I just can't go along with it. It's not for me. I think like no one should really be a billionaire and as rich as Jeff Bezos or anything like that, but I want to do a whole story on billionaires. I don't know how to phrase it because I don't want to sound anti-money. I like money. I like having money. I would love to have $1 billion in the bank and never stress. But yeah, so what can we learn from this? You tell me in the comments. What do you think of Ellen DeGeneres? Would you still watch any of her clips? I know there's like still that Sophia girl who did the boom, da, boom, 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 boom. They still raved that their experience was goodness. So there was lots of people that had good experience, but I think it depended what you get. The Ellen show is what you got back from them as well. So yeah, thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you like this. If you'd like to look at more hair videos, makeup tutorials, check out my Collie's Creations page. I'm also a hairdresser, so check out my TikTok for that and Instagram. And I'll see you in my next video.